And I'm so excited to get us started today to talk a little bit about our year of procurement and the work of our Code for America Fellows.
It doesn't get more policy wonky than year of procurement, right? I mean, if you think about it, this seems like one of those issues that is really studied at a university and looked at by a few, and how does it really affect people?
So it's not just about what we buy and what we spend, but it's about how we do business.
We're going to be taking on procurement with our partners in Pittsburgh. We're delighted to be partnering with a fantastic mayor and a fantastic team there, and of course with Laura Meixell, who was a fellow last year, who is now leading up data analytics for the City of Pittsburgh. The City of Pittsburgh is expected to spend $120 million on capital projects between 2015 and 2018. We are very excited to help figure out some hacks on that system that can get us some better outcomes.
My team currently in our fellowship year is working with the City of Pittsburgh on the problem of procurement, which is the way that the city buys anything from things as small as pencils to things as big as bridges and fire trucks.
So Code for America is a nonprofit based in San Francisco with a mission of bringing in technology and business processes that were developed in the tech industry. There have been a lot of innovations in the last 10 years in tech and in a lot of other private sector industries. And so Code for America is trying to bring that to city government that has tended to kind of stall in those areas.
My main area of expertise for this year, for this project, is going to be in software engineering. So when we're talking about building web applications, a lot of that will be in terms of the data and communicating in with the technology. That's going to be mostly what I'm going to be doing.
The area of expertise I'm contributing to the Pittsburgh project is largely in design, sort of all aspects of design, from research to thinking about the product and what features, to visual design, to wireframing, and a tiny bit of front-end stuff. And I'm definitely looking forward to picking up more of that as the project goes on.
My expertise, my background is in data visualization, cartography, and GIS, which I was doing before this for the City of Philadelphia. So for this project, it's more going to be on the data visualization, data processing side, as well as basic project management.
There's a reason that we chose procurement. And the reason is the money that government spends is the last vestige of the political machine. The old political machine was built upon getting people jobs. You'd work the polls, you'd get the people to vote in your neighborhood, then you got a job for it. The new political machine is built upon money. You fund the campaign, and then your company gets the contract. And the way that procurement's done in government is done in shadows, and the contracts are written for specific companies. The question was, could we use technology to change that model? Could we use technology to break that last rusty chain of an old political machine and shed light onto the process, and in that process, give everybody the opportunity to bid for that work?
So I think our initial thoughts are that the process is much more complex than at least I was willing to originally give it credit for. It starts out even knowing if what you're after is on contract or not on contract. The process for determining that is complicated. Then, once you move past that, you have a second process about how you go about acquiring that item, depending on how much it costs. And assuming you need to put out a competitive bid for the item or the service that you're after, that has its own process. And then once you're finished with that, you move on to contracting. And once you finish with that, you have purchasing. So there are many discrete steps along the way in this process, and something that I think the complexity of that is something that we're really starting to get our heads around and really appreciate.
Our mission here as fellows lasts about a year. We are currently wrapping up the end of our residency month, which is February 2015, and we've spent all month having lots of conversations with city staff. I think the last time when we tallied it up last night, we had talked to over 70 city and county staff, and we're getting up to the high 20s, maybe we'll get to 30 by next week, of local business owners in the business community. And all of this research has to do with understanding how the city purchases things on the inside, and also how to open up that process so that more local businesses can be a part of selling to the city in the future.
This is a bone needle. It's used to deliver medication to people who've been seriously injured in an accident. It's one of the fastest ways to get life-saving medication to people who really need it. Like all the other things the City of Pittsburgh buys, bone needles come from contracts like this one. And as we know, these contracts expire. And when they do, it's up to the Office of Management and Budget to see that they're rebid, renewed, or extended as is appropriate. And this task falls on 2 purchasing agents in the city. This spreadsheet is the tool that they use to do this task. Spreadsheets are a flexible and powerful tool, but they're not always the best choice for the job, especially when that job involves managing 450 contracts, 75 of which may be actively going through the process at any given time. On top of that, the spreadsheet is filled with shorthand that's difficult for people who aren't directly responsible for the work to understand and be able to access. And as a result, things can fall through the cracks. For example, the bone needles. The city, one of the only vendors in the city who sourced these bone needles, was not contacted when that contract was up, and as a result, the city couldn't buy bone needles in bulk. And this is something that my colleague Shelly likes to talk about as an example of the human cost of procurement. But why did this happen? To us, it's an example of closed data creating a closed process that leaves people out of the loop. And this has immediate impacts. City staff don't have the tools they need to do their jobs well. Businesses don't have the opportunity to work with the City of Pittsburgh and grow and expand. And ultimately, it's Pittsburghers who pay the price at the end of the day.
So an example of how we worked with this team to put that concept into action was that we had a lot of problems understanding what was actually on contract at any given time. We didn't know how many contracts we had, what was covered on those contracts, what other departments might be using them, or when they might expire. So we actually gave the fellows a spreadsheet of the GIF that Ben showed you as a part of their January training. And when they showed up in February, they had a first sample of something that they've been iterating on ever since.
We have spent the summer building out 4 different products. And we are launching 3 of those this month in September. So we've got Beacon, which is a place for city staff to post upcoming opportunities for local vendors to do business with the City of Pittsburgh. We've also got Scout, which is a way for city staff to look up contracts that are already available. And then we've got Conductor, which is an internal tool for people in OMB to be able to track contracts as they move through the renewal or the rebid or the competitive bid process.
I think something that's been really interesting is how much excitement there is and how much people see and want change and want things to be easier. So, there's a lot of, thinking about how governments are short-term risk minimizers, but in our experience, I think that for the most part, we found people to be open and willing to accept change.
When you approach trying to solve a problem from an actual user need, people respond really well to that. So there are applications that we are working on and building out right now that require people in different departments to really change what they're doing, and that can be really hard a lot of the times.
Prior to coming to work for the city, I was actually a Code for America fellow myself, working in 2013 with a team of fellows, much like our own team of fellows, in the city of Louisville, Kentucky, with our brothers and sisters down the Ohio. Instead of working on procurement there, we actually worked on criminal justice issues and built a couple of applications to support their streamlining of some of their criminal justice and specifically jail processes. So Code for America works in a variety of different topic areas, everything from criminal justice to parks and recreation to public transportation. But we selected procurement here in the city of Pittsburgh because that is absolutely what Mayor Peduto wanted to do. He was very excited about the opportunity to engage Code for America around this somewhat intractable issue of procurement, and he was very confident in our ability to think about using technology to change some of the ways that we do things, and I think that we were very successful in doing that. So procurement as a problem is a big bear, very big bear, that's been growing for a very long time, dozens of years, in all sorts of different directions based on needs of city employees, based on legislation that council has enacted, and based certainly on the Act 47 situation. And so for us, I think the most challenging part of this project was sort of to take that huge potential scope of working on procurement and to select within it areas that we really felt that we could work and understand and develop applications around. So for us, I think the most challenging part of this project was sort of to take that huge potential scope of working on procurement and to select within it areas that we really felt that we could work and understand and develop applications around.
Right after getting into the fellowship, we were asked to rank what fellowship cities we wanted to be part of, and Pittsburgh was definitely number one for me.
I requested Pittsburgh as my top choice.
We all chose Pittsburgh. The way the process works with Code for America is they ask for basically your top 3 choices, and we all put Pittsburgh high on top of the list.
Not only because I grew up in Allegheny County, or Pine Township, which is north here, and I'm proud to tell people that I'm from Pittsburgh.
I sort of got into civic hacking here and still have many connections here.
There's a Pennsylvania connection. I really care about the state, but also just Pittsburgh's a very exciting place right now. There's a lot of young energy that's come in and a lot of just potential for change, and with an economic rebound that's just I wanted to be a part of.
I really like this city, and I'm really glad to be back here as a fellow.
My favorite thing about Pittsburgh that I have seen is you have young people who do things that it's very specific to Pittsburgh. So like people that are my age that join bowling leagues and go to bingo nights. I think that's really cool, and that's not you don't see that in every city.
My favorite thing about Pittsburgh is that it's small enough for me to feel like I can propose a change in some community, whether it's an artistic community or at City Hall even, because it's small enough that I think my voice can be heard. And it's also big enough that once you put your stake in the ground about like, hey, I'd really like to see this new thing happen, there are enough people that will like coalesce around you to make it happen.
I think my favorite, well, I mean, I'm a big Penguins fan, and I'm really into the hockey scene here. It's really great. But I think the city, I think Shelly talked about this a little bit too, but it's small enough that you don't get lost. When I lived in New York, I often felt just totally lost in the city. But at the same time, it's big enough and there's enough diversity of things here that there's always something new and there's always something exciting.